Well, hello, this is Coast to Coast AM. I'm George Norrie with Dr. Eugene Mallove tonight, my guest. Doctor, I guess for us to really get going into this, I want you to tell us a little bit about the New Energy Foundation, what it is, when it was formed, and why.
Well, we've been publishing Infinite Energy magazine for a number of years now, anyway, since 1995, and we're going into our 10th year soon. But in the year 2002, we decided that a better basis for it, rather than having it nonprofit and have it owned by a company that was titled Cold Fusion Technology, it would be much better to have it nonprofit, as it is now, 501c3, so charitable contributions will have their effect. And we are doing two things, continuing. We are continuing, of course, to publish Infinite Energy magazine, which goes to some 40-plus countries, actually, recipients thereof. We have rather small print runs, but still it's very influential. Many thousands of people see it and buy it. But at the same time, we wanted to raise money so that we could give money away in the form of research grants to inventors and scientists who are doing critically needed research, because certainly the government is not directly funding this. At least the United States government is not, certainly the Department of Energy is not funding it. There have been some military quasi-surreptitious givings of money for the low-energy nuclear reactions area, but there's really nothing being spent by the government. So we at New Energy Foundation do get a pool of money, are in the process of trying to assemble that so that in the initial stages we could hopefully reach something on the order of $500,000 a year to be given away, awarded to specific recipients who merit this. Now, we get all manner of inquiries, I hasten to say, particularly since we're on the air here, of all manner of people who think they have some over-unity device, something that produces more energy out than in. And we always take a very objective look at it, providing that they, under non-disclosure or with no non-disclosure, bring it to our attention and show the measurements, show us the measurements or let us measure it, and then find out whether their ideas are worthwhile.
Because there could be another Joseph Pop out there somewhere, right? And we'll talk about him later.
Absolutely. We never throw anything out, no matter how crazy it sounds on first blush, unless the person is obviously disturbed, okay, or purely driven by blather and emotionality. We want to see data, results. We can sometimes agree to a situation where we get a black box, as it were, where we are not allowed to look inside, but we can evaluate its performance, the input and the output, the weighing of it, and making sure that some truly incredible performance is occurring. That rarely happens, by the way, because most inventors, a lot of inventors, either will not share with us their
proprietary
their work. They won't even let us test it. In which case, forget it.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be tested.
We have wasted a lot of time with people who just, we're on very thin ice to begin with. Okay, quite damaging. And now, after many years of the School of Hard Knocks, we know what's real when we see it and test it, and what's not real.
Have you had some intriguing people come in?
We've had very intriguing people come in. We've had one especially intriguing person who came in who to this day is probably doing some good work. We understand. We follow their trail, as it were.
Yeah.
But I have to say, with respect to this Mr. X, let's call this particular, actually I don't want to call him Mr. X to confuse people, but a certain party, a nice scientific man who had certain ether vacuum energy kind of ideas.
He's an American, right?
American, yes, doing a lot of experiments. And to this day, I have not been presented with the kind of material and information necessary to evaluate his work. But if he calls me on the phone or his associates call me on the phone, I always talk with them and I ask them about the latest status of the work. I mean, that's a clear case where the guy might well have something, and is worth pursuing because we know he's scientifically based, but show us the evidence.
Doesn't that make you suspect when they don't do that?
It gives me some pause, yes, indeed. And so, for example, I could never state to anybody today that this particular person, let's call him Mr. G to distinguish, Mr. G has not shown us the measurements and the devices that we need to see. But perhaps someday he will break down and show it to us. He's very friendly to us, so I don't have a problem. On the other hand, we have people, excellent people, who have allowed me to come into their laboratory, measure their machines, and observe what they're doing, and read their theories, and see in intimate detail, almost as detailed as I could possibly wish, so that I can confidently assert that they indeed have vacuum energy technology. There are people like that.
I've got a pill that you can drop in the water. It turns it into fuel, but I'm not going to show you how it works.
Right. No, we're not talking about people like that. We wouldn't talk. We would certainly go to such a demonstration if a person had such a pill, but we would not spend too much time if we were not allowed to test it independently.
So as you proceed, as you kind of wean out these people,
yes.
Why isn't our government saying this is critical, we need to do this, or are they doing it somewhere, doctor, in a laboratory at Area 51? Yeah. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Well, let's put that second question aside, whether the government sort of has it under its arm in the first place. That's an interesting question. I doubt it, quite frankly, but I'm open to the possibility that they have. Let's just talk about, to start with, the first thing that got my interest, of course, which was cold fusion.
And explain what that is.
Well, Drs. Pons and Fleischmann made the claim in 1989, and they published a scientific paper in the Journal of Electroanalytical Chemistry pretty quickly thereafter, after the press conference. They said, look, we're passing an electric current into an electrochemical cell which has palladium for one of its electrodes and platinum for another electrode. And this heavy water, which is obtainable from all water, it's not radioactive, it's normal stuff that you can get from the ocean or from snow or streams. Small percentage of water is heavy water. It's got the heavy hydrogen isotope, basically, D2O, not H2O. And what we see is more energy out than in. In other words, more heat energy is coming out than electrical energy is going in. Now, when you do an experiment like that with a heat measuring calorimeter, you have to be very careful because there are some bookkeeping errors of the production of hydrogen and oxygen that you can fool yourself with. So that was indeed a fair initial question. Are they doing the bookkeeping correctly? And they were world-class electrochemists. They knew about those bookkeeping possible errors, but they had obviously checked that out very carefully before they made their announcement. And they found that the amount of heat coming out, even though it was, relatively speaking, a small excess percentage, but when it persisted over many, many days, weeks, and months even, that you add it up, and it basically told them there's some kind of energy source in here. We don't know exactly what it is, but it's not standard chemistry. It looks to us like a nuclear source, and they had some other evidence, radioactive tritium that was produced, and some what they believe to be neutron emissions that they correlated to some extent, not in the conventional fusion reaction, but some new kind of fusion reaction. So it's a complicated story, but in essence, they announced that they had created a nuclear kind of probable fusion type reaction in a jar of water. This was guaranteed to create instant controversy.
Without the danger of radiation, let's say?
Correct.
Okay.
That is correct. In fact, the establishment brought forth the argument against them, an absurd argument, but this is what it amounts to. They said, since we, great nuclear physicists and hot fusion people, understand everything there is to know about fusion, and we can tell you that the only way you could possibly be getting the heat that you say you're getting would be to have a corresponding amount of deadly radiation. Since you're alive, your results, your measurements must be wrong.